Hi everyone, this is Arcadius and welcome back to Naval. Today we'll be reviewing the very first American battleship in the American Tech Tree line, but first let's take a look at the line itself. So the American Tech Tree line for battleships can be separated into two halves: slow early war battleships and fast battleships. So the slow ones start with Wyoming, then we go to New York, then we have New Mexico, and lastly Colorado. And then after Colorado, we start with the fast battleships, such as North Carolina, Iowa, and then finally Montana. All of these battleships are actually really good, but each of them has their own separate play style, and since you have slow battleships and fast battleships, there's different techniques and strategies on how to use these ships. So first, let's go with Wyoming, but just normal review of the line itself. For the fast battleships, they have pretty slow speed, but pretty heavy armament. Range is meh. Secondaries are almost non existent. AA is not terrible, but not exactly spectacular. And your survivability and armor. Your armor is okay, but you can still be citadel relatively easily if at the right angle. And then once you go to fast battleships, you do lose a little bit of armor. That doesn't mean that you're easily citadel, though. North Carolina herself is actually pretty sturdy, but Iowa and Montana are easy to citadel on the broadside. But along with an increase in speed, they get a lot more AA defense. And American battleships have some of the strongest anti aircraft suites in the game, especially Montana. So let's take a look at Wyoming to see what we have. First off, she's a very long ship, and you can just notice the number of guns she has. She has 12 guns on a broadside and on the center line. Well, let's take a look at the other stats first. 43,800 health, 18% torpedo resistance, and up to 12 inches of armor. That would be, looks like, on the broadside and the guns and barbettes themselves. So pretty standard. This ship, though it's not impossible, is actually really hard to citadel. There's only a few cases in which I've been able to. That doesn't mean she can't take major chunk damage because she has a really thick broadside, but citadel here will not be very easily. Alright, guns. You have a 12-inch guns. The rate of fire is okay, but the 180-degree turn time is absolutely dreadful. You have to pick a side of the map you want to focus on, and then just keep your guns on either the left or right side and just sail around the outskirts. You should not try and maneuver your guns very easily with these because you cannot. Shell damages are really good. Shell velocity is pretty good as well. Secondaries, you do have some. As you can see, they're the casemates in here, and then you have a couple in the superstructure. They're not going to be very useful at all, honestly. So your main guns shoot out to 14 kilometers, and your secondaries shoot out to 4 kilometers. And then your speed is a relatively slow 20.5 knots. So you're not getting anywhere fast. Your guns can't turn very fast, but man, do you have a lot of broadside firepower. Um, AA, you're not going to really see any carriers, but your AA is pretty good actually compared to other ships at this tier. Though, like I said, you're really not going to see any kind of aircraft at all, so it doesn't really matter. Um, but yeah, so let's toss into a game and see what we can do. Alright, here we ourselves a game, bunch of battleships, couple cruisers, and then one destroyer. This ship is really fun. She's my favorite low tier battleship to play. I do have health buffs and speed buffs applied as well. And I forgot to mention this, but I also have obviously the sister ship, and I've renamed her Arkansas. This sister ship is most likely the first one you're ever going to get. It's relatively cheap, and it's for a really low tier ship. So I actually had enough coupons saved up to get a Magi sister ship, but then I found out I wasn't able to get her unless I actually had the ship herself. So I just backed down and got Wyoming's instead. But it's not terrible. It's a pretty nice looking camo. Alright, so as you can see, automatically pretty much everything's in range. Your gun angles are actually pretty trash. Like, look at the fifth turret. Um, this is the kind of angle you need for all of your guns to be useful. AKA, you are completely broadside. Now let me see if I can take out some damage on this St. Louis. And it maneuvers just enough that I don't think I'm going to hit it at all. Yep. Oh. So I'm going to actually try and get a little bit closer and then turn broadside. I see our Japanese cruisers here are being very useful. One thing I did realize though, and I actually just came across this today, is that Wyoming may have a lot of guns on the center line, but in a bow chase or a stern chase, as fast as you're gonna go at either of those, she only has 4 guns either directly ahead or directly astern. And all other battleships at this tier, hey, secondary kill, have the possibility of having 6 guns forward or back. I'm pretty sure. That actually may be wrong with Corvette. But ships like Kawachi and Nassau and Dreadnought, with just a little bit of wiggling, they can get 3 turrets facing forward and facing backward as well, which is something that Wyoming cannot do. There's a good bunch of damage, 11 shell hits for, what was that? I actually don't even remember what, was it 13,000 damage? Regardless, you can do massive amounts of damage. There's another Wyoming. And a stationary St. Louis. Don't mind if I do. Now the ship can be a good AG spammer as well. You can get massive amounts of damage, mainly because there's nothing at this tier that can survive 12-inch guns of high explosive shells. But I find armor piercing is better because overall you just do a lot more damage, and you can also punish cruisers quite a bit as well. That may not always work against lighter cruisers like Kolberg, Dresden, and like Tenerife. They literally have so little armor that it just goes right through them. So in that case, high explosive is better. But obviously, if you only have armor piercing loaded, it's still going to do damage. And you can still see here that I'm still just getting a bunch of overpens. Alright, so we're getting our way to these corbettes over here at a blistering 21.9 knots. This speed is what you're going to have until Colorado. So if you cannot take slow and steady, then either just try and breeze through the very first half of the American battleship line, or choose something else like French or something. Because until North Carolina, you will never get past 22 knots. 20,000 damage. She stops very quickly, mainly because she's as aerodynamic or hydrodynamic as an elephant. But actually getting up to speed is another story. Alright, so we got a Citadel there. That's awesome. I'm going to try shooting the other one so I can get a little bit more damage on the other Corvette. And you just kind of sit here, and everything's in range. And you just take and pick your targets, shooting under the turrets to see if I can get another citadel. And we have 2 of them. Switch back to this Corvette. And it looks like these are the only 2 ships left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split up my guns. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. And we were almost able to get both of them. Fortunately, we were just a little bit off. That's alright. 1, 2. Awesome. So let's see how we did. $167,000 damage, 3 ships sunk, 97 shell hits, 4 citadels, 1 fire, and 1 secondary hit. That 1 secondary set a fire and sank a ship all at the same time, so good job to that secondary crew. We had 166,000 damage in armor-piercing shells, and that 1 measly secondary hit for 408 damage. That sank the wicks. Alright, so yeah, the ship is unbeatable when it comes to broadsiding armor-piercing damage. However, like I said, if you're going directly astern, or I should say a forward or directly astern, she does have limited gun arcs. Add to that to get from one side of the ship to the other, it takes forever and a day for the turrets to rotate. So you have to pick a side and stick with it, and hope that you don't have an enemy on the other side, because by the time you're able to face them, they'll probably have quite a bit of damage done to you. With that, I will wrap up today's video. If you liked the video, make sure you like and subscribe for further content, and join me tomorrow while we go over New York, one of the super dreadnoughts. So again, thank you for watching, and take care.